Right. We're good to go. Cool. All right. Well, welcome back to my channel. Today we have a guest. Her name is Tia, and we're covering the subject of mental health and everything surrounding it, from A to Z. So, welcome aboard here, Tia. I'm happy to have you. And if you could explain to the audience, I guess what we can do is just bring it right back from when things began to erupt for you before initial diagnosis, if we could.
Okay, I guess I would say it probably started when I was maybe 9.
Oh, wow.
I grew up in foster care. So at the age of 9, I went into foster care, and I bounced around to multiple homes, multiple children's shelters, multiple shelters until I finally reached my last home, which I was 15.
Okay.
And at that point, that's when my depression really kicked in really bad, because I was away from my mom. I was living in a house with 12 girls and two parents, and they had their own biological kids. So it was new to me, and it was difficult for me to grasp.
Hmm.
Um, so went and saw a lot of different psychiatrists. I started on depression medication. Um, so I probably would say I started taking medication at the age of 15.
Okay.
And then when I turned 18, I aged out of the system and I stopped taking medication cold turkey. I weaned myself off of it.
Hmm.
Um, and then, I got married, I had children. And then I went through a disgusting divorce. And again, my depression got worse at that time, when I was going through the divorce. And I just didn't know who I was. I didn't know if I was coming or going. And it got to the point where I would lock myself in the bathroom. I would try to, drown myself in the bathtub. I would cut on my arms to just, ease the pain. And then I think probably 2 years ago was when I got diagnosed with bipolar depression 1.
Okay.
And I had a really bad mental breakdown one night. That was the first time, I think it was like in July of 2019. I had to allow my children to go stay over with their father for a whole month. And during that time, there was no communication with my kids. He wouldn't let me talk to them. And, I was used to seeing my children every single day and talking to
Right.
them.
Okay.
And then, from that, I had to go to not talking to them for a whole entire month, which was not okay with me. And I didn't know how to cope with it. So I remember one night, taking multiple different pills, trying to kill myself. And, I reached out to my boss at a job I used to work at, and I was like, I sent her a video of me doing it, and I was like, I'm just done with life. Like, I'm tired of life. I feel like nobody understands me. Um, so from that point, next thing you know, there's 20 plus cops knocking at my door. The ambulance is there, and now I'm being escorted on to the ambulance to go to the hospital. I got admitted to the hospital, and from there, I talked to a caseworker, and she was like, "Do you want to voluntarily go get help and go to a psych ward?" And at that time, I'm like, "Okay, I don't know what that is. I've never experienced that." But at that moment, I was like, I can't think about myself anymore. I need to get help with my mental health before it gets out of control and I do take my life.
That's right.
So I admitted myself to a psych ward. I got help. I got back on medication. I start seeing a therapist. I start seeing a psychiatrist regularly. And I just started to try to figure out ways on how to deal with my bipolar depression instead of trying to hide it.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of people, they look at it as like, oh, I should be ashamed of having it. And at first I was ashamed and I blamed myself. But now I'm 2 years into having the diagnosis. And I've taken a lot of different medications and, tried a lot of different things to kind of like, deal with it. But what I've grown to know is I'm not ashamed of it anymore. Like it's a serious mental health disorder. And a lot of people don't take it serious. They don't educate themselves on the diagnosis. So Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
much how it all started.
Well, that's a nice way of elaborating on your story and beginning too, and I'd like to dissect it as well. When you were put on the antidepressant years past, I think you said you were 15. Was that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice an increase in progression of this disease after the initial doses of the antidepressants by chance? Did things seem to be getting worse for you mentally, like breakdowns and whatnot, or was it environmental
I think it got
thing?
worse. It got
Yeah.
worse after the medication
Okay.
because some of the medications that I took when I was 15, like it made me be more or feel more suicidal. Like I
Yeah.
wanted
Right.
to kill
Same.
myself even more.
Yeah.
So it made me more depressed. So,
Yeah. And from my research, what I've studied too was that antidepressants are the kind of drug that creates a domino effect to escalate
hmm
into the psychosis and mania and stuff, right? And I was also on the same. I was on Zoloft when I was, I guess, 14, 15, right up until my diagnosis at 19, right? And that was 20 odd years ago. And
hmm
I've been reading a lot of books in the past couple of years, and Gabor Mate's a specific one that jumps out to me and resonates heavily, and it's called When the Body Says No.
okay,
We have so many ways of suppressing, you know, our traumas that might have happened years past. And for yourself, with your life story that you just expressed to us, that would have a lot to do with the upcoming events that brought down your mental health, or sorry, broke it down and gave you that diagnosing. Um,
hmm
but it's definitely something that is coming to light as days go on. Like I was so against it and the stigma surrounding it, the embarrassment, the shame. Because I recall, as a kid growing up, if you weren't, part of the norm, the pack, an outsider, you felt that, right? And it
hmm
and it amplified. And I could befriend anybody, be a great conversationalist, and the moment I tossed out that title, bipolar, 20 years ago, people weren't really familiar with it, and they were more or less hesitant to continue friendship because it was an unknown territory and it scared them, right?
hmm
And I suppose when people jump on Google and they type something in, they see psychosis, madness, psychoticness, all the other, shit that comes with it, and
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
it's hard for us to, express it, you know, uh, that's a suitable manner for people to grasp and understand. So I hear you and can understand, where you're coming from with that angle, right? So you've been diagnosed now for 2 years and taking medication. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Okay.
2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
I have my days, and
mhm.
I have two teenagers and 11-year-old sons. I have two daughters, 15 and 14, and which my 15-year-old doesn't live with me. My
Okay.
ex-husband decided to use my mental health against me, um,
That's unfortunate.
and yeah, and took my daughter away from me. So right now, at the moment, I only have my 14-year-old daughter, my 11-year-old son. So my daughter, she's kind of educated herself on it, and she's there for me a lot, and she knows, mom is not going to always have a good day. Like I'm going to wake up and there's going to be days where I could be in a shitty mood and nobody
That's
has had
right.
to do anything to me. um and I was actually talking to one of my girlfriends this morning. She was like, Tia, I would have never thought you were bipolar because you don't act like a bipolar person. And I said, I try to hide it because a lot of people are not accepting of it.
That's right.
A lot of people are not educated on, how it feels. They look down on us like it's
Yeah,
our
they do.
fault.
Okay.
And it's not easy. It's very difficult and very hard, going day to day dealing with that. And especially right now, we're in this pandemic, it's even harder.
Most definitely.
So
Yeah.
it's it's
And
it's a lot.
yeah, that's the sad point of all this, that people can't just understand that it's no different than being diabetic or having some type of physical
hmm
illness that's visible. When it's invisible, they just chalk it up to experience from what they've been told or what they read, and it's just cut and dry. And
hmm
they don't realize that it's you aren't the disease; it's a part of you, and you're just trying to deal with it on the everyday battle, and it is tough. You know, people wake
Yeah.
up. Some people can relate who have to deal with depression on a regular, you know, without a diagnosing of bipolar or anything else. I was diagnosed bipolar 1, 2, and had a psychosis, manic episode, and that's what got me in the hospital. But I've tapered off medication now for the last 3 years.
Oh, that's
Or good
good.
off. Yeah, well, it was absolutely necessary for my well-being. I was becoming very sick, and that was my next question to you was, how do you feel with the side effects that come with the medications that you take? Are you having anything that's in the negative manner?
Um, so I started a new dose, and I've explained to my psychiatrist because I instead of seeing her every 3 months, I talk to her every month. We
Nice.
talk via Zoom.
Okay.
Um, and every time I talk to her, it's like I'm explaining to her, I don't feel like the medicine is helping. Can I get on something else because I'm more moody, I'm more snappy, I'm crying every day, and I don't want to live my life like that. Like
No.
I don't want to be on medication for the rest of my life. I don't want to wake up every day depressed. I at least want to have at least one good day out of the week.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm more snappy to people around me, um, and to like my significant other. Like I find myself picking fights, or, he says, when I can get very emotional, and that emotional side scares him where I'll have a manic episode.
Hmm.
And when you have that, you don't really know. Like it's like you just see red and you're just
Yeah.
reacting. So she keeps like upping the dosage, and I'm like, okay, I don't think upping the dosage is working. I think I need to try something different,
Hmm.
because obviously this medication is not it's not helping, like with these side effects. Like I don't know if that's normal or if that's what I should expect. I mean,
Well,
I
that's the
don't
thing
know.
too. Having these multiple concoctions out there for every individual, we can't be classified as the same. You can have the same diagnosing, but we're all exposed to these medications, and the influence us, sorry, differently.
Hmm.
That was the same problem I had with my psychiatrist. He wanted to keep upping the dose because I wasn't in that margin that they were looking at with the blood work, and saying you're not
Hmm.
in that range, so we're gonna up it and up it. I'm like, man, I'm telling you, buddy, like I'm getting sick from this. My kidneys were about to shut down with nephrogenic
Oh
diabetes
no.
insipidus. Yeah, with lithium. I was sitting at 1350, 1,350 milligrams, and that's quite a high dose, seeing how I started out on 300 20 odd years ago. And they figured, based on charts, not how I was presenting myself in conversation, just this is what the blood work's telling us. Your lithium levels are low. You better increase. And I was like, man, like I'm getting numbness in my extremities now, and I'm finding
Hmm.
it difficult just to run the course of a day. And it got to the point where I was blacking out, passing out. Very difficult to breathe. I got AS too, though. That's another disease, physical disease that was, eating my bones and making it very rigid. And on medication for that, but I just found that the pharmaceutical drugs for me as an individual were suppressing my ability to function and to grow and to heal. I'm not, a doctor. I'll never pose to be one, and
Hmm.
I'm not one to condone and simply tell people to get off your medication. That's not what it's about. It's just bringing awareness to the disease and diseases that are all looped together here. But just to get a recognition for each and every individual. I was silenced for so long and couldn't find people to speak to about this because it wasn't really known, 20 years ago.
Hmm.
And I felt like a fucking alien, if I must say it. Trying to express it to family and friends, were like, "What is that? What are you going through?" It's like, man, if you only walked in my
Hmm.
shoes for maybe a day, you get it.
Yeah, you would.
You know.
Yeah.
And I'm not about the victim mentality. I'm about you know growing, and I exercise daily. I highly suggest shadow work for individuals like us, going through this because medication can help, therapy can help, but those are just put in place to band-aid and get you over that hurdle. But it's
Hmm.
ultimately up to us as individuals to propel further, and there is practices that we can do. I read a lot. I'm one with nature, going in the woods and walking trails and different things. The importance of proper diet for me, because I know, like last night, I shouldn't have done this knowing I had podcasts today, but I ate a bunch of shit. I smoke weed, right? You know, and I'm like, my son brings home chocolate bars. He's like, Dad, you want one? I'm like, no, 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 no. I'll hold that for tomorrow, right? And there I am, puffing away. And I'm like, oh man, those are looking good. Oh, Henry bars. Devoured that and all kinds of other shit. And I woke up going, oh man, right? I call it a carb hangover. So
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, right? Bad idea when you're trying to be coherent and doing a podcast. But nonetheless, we're human, and you know, I'm going to have my slips like anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend against booze, though, for people. Um, you know, alcoholism runs in my family quite heavily, and I
Yeah, mine
drank.
too. Mine
Oh,
too.
right. And I would drink.
Yeah, I think like last night I had like a really bad night and I was just like drinking drink after drink after
Yeah,
drink.
right.
And it's like, you try to drink to numb the pain, but it's like after you're done drinking, the
You feel so
pain
much worse, right?
is still yeah,
Yeah,
it's still there.
yeah, I know. And what that becomes is problematic for each and every one of us. I'm sure a lot of people can vouch on that subject. All we're doing is suppressing things further. It's a vortex, like a black abyss. We can just keep tossing things in, thinking we can fill this, and
Hmm.
you don't. You come back empty, regretful, feeling worse about yourself and your situation, and yeah, it totally amplified things for me. I had to get off. 2 years sober now, woo, right? You know, I
Oh,
still
that's
miss it,
good.
man. Well, thank
Congratulations.
you, right? Still miss it, but it's just better all, you know, to have that in my system. So,
Hmm.
so could you elaborate on the doses and what scripts you're taking, if that's comfortable with you, Tia? Just
Uh, I don't know by heart. Let me see. I could probably
okay,
get the medication so I can tell you
sure.
because I don't know by heart. I know I was taking Zoloft. That really wasn't that really wasn't helping. Let me see. Because it's for a lot of different diagnoses.
Hmm.
Like I have PTSD, I have anxiety, and then I have, like I said, the bipolar depression one. Um, let me see. Here's all the drugs. Okay, so the first one is trazodone,
Okay.
50 milligrams. Second one, I can't. Is Abilify. It's 30 milligrams. And the other one is ESCITALOPRAM, and it's 20 milligrams.
Never heard of that one. I'm not even sure how to pronounce that myself, but yeah, right. These wacky, wild names they give these drugs.
Yeah.
I am very familiar with Abilify, and I had a family physician at the time who prescribed that because I wasn't. I had something called oh shit, what was it now? Um, oh my god, lithium. Oh my god, it was. Jeez, I can't recall it. That's pathetic. But it was a heavy dose of an antipsychotic medication, and it just
Hmm.
wasn't doing anything for me. I felt really drowsy. Definitely wasn't clear-minded at all. It was just hard to function. But he put me on Abilify, and there wasn't a tapering, and that's highly recommended. You need to taper off the drug while introducing a new one, because if you just do that quick switch, your body and mind just goes into chaotic mode. And
Hmm.
I was trying to attend community college halfway through, and that just wrecked me. Like I went into a severe depression, restlessness, like you wouldn't believe, anxiety up the ass. It was just intense, and I went back to my doctor. I was like, you know, from my research, man, you're supposed to taper. And he's like, well, no, you know, you'll be all right. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna take a while to conform to this and get used to it, but yeah, definitely don't recommend a GP to regulate your psychiatric drugs by any means.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. With the side effects on the Abilify, do you have any at all? I was on I believe, a 50 milligram dose, and I couldn't sit still, Tia, and it was bad, right? You know, just jumping all over the place and motor mouth and horrendous.
I notice that I'm always tired. Like I don't have energy. Like I just want to sleep all day.
Yeah,
So I would say that's probably the only
yeah,
side effect. And then like sometimes I can't eat. Like I'll be hungry and I'll order like a whole meal and I'll eat like one piece of it. So like I don't have an appetite. I'm always tired. No energy. Those sort of things.
yeah. See, that was my biggest thing with the side effects of drugs. You know, they're great to band aid and help you, but for me, personally, it was just fuck, man, difficult to just get through the day. Like it's almost like
Mm-hmm.
there's a big dark cloud raining over your head, and you know, I asked my wife recently, like, how do you feel since I've been off the medicine? And she says, well, a changed individual. Now, that's not just off the meds, though. Like, a lot of shadow work. I meditate daily. Like, I got an hour and a quarter to an hour and a half dedicated to a morning routine, which involves isometrics, planks, sit ups, meditation, diaphragm breathing, breath work,
Oh wow.
qigong, all this, yeah. Because you know, we are given a label, a title, if you will, medication to help us, therapy to help us, but that's only,
Mm-hmm.
you know, maybe 40-50% that's gonna, you know, enable a success story out of anything. We really have to put in our hard work and due diligence, and it's tough, man. I know it is. Many days I didn't want to shower when I was on medication and depressed. Couldn't get in my own way, and
Mm-hmm.
it's horrible. And I do find, though, if you do something 5 to 10 times, typically 10, it becomes a habit. And what I do is, if I really don't feel motivated, I do the count backwards, the 3, 2, 1. Like if I'm laying in bed, I'm like, yeah, I should get up, man. You know, it's 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. Where I
Mm-hmm.
landscape, I'm in the winter months right now. It's pretty laid back. That's why I have ample time to do whatever. But I still have to get up and get that routine going, or I feel like I've failed myself and it's a setback, because it puts me back into that mindset of years past when I just kind of let things go and it's like, bah, the hell with it. There's always tomorrow, right? But hard work and dedication, um, you know, goes a long ways. But everyone has their own methods and ideologies on, you know, bettering themselves too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But uh, what do you hope to gain from telling your story, Tia?
I hope to be able to help someone that's going through it and, just let them know like it's not the end of the world. Like
That's
there
right.
is light at the end of the tunnel. I think it's best to have a good support system. Um, to have people there for you. So, when you are going through difficult times, you can call people up and you can talk to them and know that, hey, they're not going to judge you.
Yes, that's key.
Because that was
Big
one of
time.
my biggest things. Like a lot of people, they judged me off of my diagnosis, or they'd be like, oh, you're just cutting on your arms because you want attention. Oh, you're just doing this because you want attention.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's not that I want attention. This is a serious thing that I'm dealing with. And if you can't educate yourself to understand what I'm going through, then you need to just X yourself out of my life.
Perfect.
Like,
Nicely put.
you can't have toxicness around you. You can't have toxic people around you. Like, you gotta have people that are gonna be there to support you. Because like right now, I only just take the medication. I'm not able to get therapy because they say I have too many diagnoses and I don't qualify
Really?
for therapy. Which yes, which
What?
I think is very stupid.
Stupid.
Because before I got diagnosed with bipolar depression one, I just had only the anxiety and the depression and the PTSD, and I was able to get therapy. But it's like
Excuse me.
when that extra diagnosis got added to it, they're like, nah, you don't qualify in our office for therapy. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. You say you're in Texas, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the bloody laws are for that, but see, that's one of the biggest problems, and that angers me because when you're in dire need of help, and you're doing everything you're supposed to, taking the medications, you know, attending your
Mm-hmm.
therapy, or, you know, you have somebody to talk to and they're denying you. I mean, how's that beneficial for the larger scale of individuals? That's why people fall through the cracks and there's
Oh yeah.
suicide rising. Like, that's just unheard of, man. You know, um, I don't really have a whole lot of kind words to say about, you know, the pharmaceutical bunch and the operation that they have it running at, the way they're just micromanaging everything. My biggest thing was going to therapy and talking to them. And typically, what I would get here in Canada was, "Oh, how you doing today, Matt?" You know, I'd see somebody every 6 months, but like, pretty good, I guess, right? Because I always didn't want to tell them too much. Like, if I really had a bad day, my biggest fear was being reintroduced to that facility of that psychiatry hospital, and I just had a
Mm-hmm.
bad time there, man. Um, so yeah, just tell them basically, you know, things are pretty good, you know, a little depressed, but I have the sad issue during these winter months. Naturally, you can't get out in the sun as often. Where I landscape, you know, in the summer months, I'm out doing my thing, 8, 10 hour days, you know, multiple days out of the week, and you're getting all that vitamin D, serotonin, melatonin, dopamine, all those things are being regulated to, you know, further your progression through it the rest of the week too. But long
Mm-hmm.
story short, I would get very blah and just kind of throw it out quickly to get out, get a script, and just run. They didn't really have my best interest at hand and at heart, I felt, individually, anyways. Just write the script. Okay, I'll see you in 6 months. Pass it to you, and off you go. I'm going, fuck me, man. What kind of shit support is this? And all those years of being medicated, I had nobody to talk to. I've got an aunt who is diagnosed schizophrenic, and I could relate and resonate with her to some degree, but it's like, where's my bipolar buddies, man? You know? Um,
Mm-hmm.
Trying to talk to ex-partners and just people in general. Just like, I must just skip this subject and talk about your life and news and politics and all that bullshit, right? You know, it was a
Mm-hmm.
depressing time for me. So, in all honesty, things didn't come to light for me even after tapering out the medicine until I went to see some people about acupuncture and started my spiritual journey around that time, right? And it's just been, you know, progression after progression, levels of increase. Like, I still look kind of shitty, man. Bags under the eyes, right? I mean, this is also the, you know, the shitty night prior, but just the medicine that just wore me the flip out, man, right? My organs were all busted. I was having rashes. This isn't to scare anybody. You know, as I mentioned, this is different for everybody. Every case is different.
Mm-hmm.
But I had rashes all over me, excessive weight gain. I couldn't get rid of it no matter what I did. You know, like I worked 6 days a week landscaping. I come home for an hour and a half, train, change up my diet as much as I could, and still had that extra weight that wouldn't be released no matter what. I was like, fuck, man, what am I supposed to do with this, right? And I'm realizing now that I get older, that was just my egocentric mindset at that point. You know, a person's valued from their heart. It's not the exterior appearance. And you know, back in them days, that's what I was caught up in. But yeah, best thing I can say is this platform here is for people to shine, for individuals like us to have their say, to tell their stories, not be ridiculed, not be judged, not be
Mm-hmm.
patronized, and just, you know, it's kind of like a therapy, I guess. You know, get your story out there, vent as much as you like, express your concerns around the subjects that are being involved in this discussion right now, and just know that it's a safe place to conversate. You know, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
And it's good to talk to other people that are going through the same thing you're going through.
big time. You know, well, you can relate on different levels.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm not medicated, I still travel that. So it's kind of like creating a map for other people, including myself, so we can all navigate, you know, in a safe manner rather than just bumping into walls and being in the dark with it.
Oh
It,
yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know, for me personally, it was a scary experience being 19. Being in a bigger city than what I was used to. Um, I was found naked running in the streets, hey.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, it's pretty wonky, man. I was doing a lot of drugs too. I think it was more a drug-induced psychosis. But I suppressed a lot of traumas from youth, and I think a lot of, even people outside of the medical field with terminology, everyone's suppressing things on the daily. We all need to heal. Uh,
Mhm.
we all have skeletons in our closets, things we're ashamed of. It's just part of being human, right? But
Mhm.
yeah, they found me naked in Calgary running the streets and nabbed me, took me to the cop shop, cloaked me for a minute, and didn't know what to do with me because I was just off my rocker, and spent 4.5 months in a institution, uh, psychiatric institution, and I kept begging to get out. Um, they wanted, they tried multiple concoctions of medication, and nothing seemed to work until they put me on lithium. And I should mention too that I was very underweight, homeless, running the streets for a couple of months, and just walking endlessly. It's
Mhm.
quite a journey. Um, so yeah, I was taking medications for 20 plus years after being released. I was very compliant with therapy, the medicine, but as my body started to reject it, I couldn't help but to go off it entirely. Tapered 10% per month until I seen an emergency doctor, and he says, "Matt, buddy, I'm telling you right now, we just did a urine test, and your kidneys aren't functioning right." I was like, "Yeah, you don't say." I was down at that point to 145 pounds maybe a few years back, and
Mm.
my face is sunk in. I couldn't hold my body upright half the time, as I mentioned. Breathing issues, having a lot of artery build up with plaque and different things, eating shit food, drinking all the time. I don't know. It was a combination of a lot of things, and I lost my brother 6 years ago, so that kind of amplified everything that I was feeling. Um, so it wasn't until I was rushed to the hospital with a pressure of 192 over 100 and some odd, and they told me to go home after 2 hours when it finally regulated and dropped down, and said, "Don't hesitate to come back. Um, we're here for you." I'm thinking, bullshit. I've been coming to you guys for several months with these issues, and you keep tossing me out the bloody door, right? And I was always telling my wife, "Man, I'd rather die on my kitchen floor than have to put up with these assholes day in and day out," right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, yeah, as I mentioned, I'm all over the place with my story because it's just, it's such an extensive journey that I had to go through to get to this point. Um, but they sent me home, and I said to my wife that afternoon, I said, "Look, honey, if I can't find a solution to my problems when the doctors can't, I'm gonna just quit and give up." And I wanted to take a gun to my head and just blow my brains out, right? Suicide was, pretty much sitting in my mind day in and day out with those difficulties that I was facing. And I seen a column on YouTube, and I mentioned this to Sean Blackwell, my last podcast,
Mhm.
about clearing out the arteries. The arteries tend to, get clogged up with medicines and the foods and just what we do to ourselves, everyday abuse. And it was a turmeric drink. And it's gut wrenching. Tastes like shit, not gonna lie. But it cleaned me out and allowed me to purge the toxins out at a faster rate. Like, I was sweating profusely at night. My bed sheets would be soaked. My wife would wake up with me and thought I pissed the bed. It was that bad.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, it was just insane. And this is all the medicine that was just, destroying my liver, my kidneys, my gallbladder, tissues. Everything was just taking a dirty beating. And yeah, this drink contains a whole lemon, the rind included, a clove of garlic, thumb-sized piece of ginger, apple cider vinegar if you can tolerate it, and you mix that up in 8 ounces of water. Drink it first thing in the morning, and don't drink anything before or after for at least 40 minutes, give or take, and keep that regimen going for up to 7 days. And tell me if anybody's listening to this, and if you want to try it yourself there, Tia, within 4 days, you don't feel a drastic difference in energy, clarity, and just overall well-being. So I stuck to that, and I've been doing consistently now for the last 3.5, 4 years, and
Mhm.
massive difference. You know, with the arthritis issues, issues I have that reduced my inflammation tenfold. So I had to do a lot of personal work, self-help from a different angle from what the doctors and therapists were saying, because they're not schooled in diet. They're not schooled in, how to chisel an image that you want for yourself. And I don't mean physically, but just becoming a better individual. Um, it's pretty much just cut and dry. Take your meds. Here's your therapy. I'll see you in a
Mhm.
couple of months. And
Mhm.
that might be okay for some, but for me, it wasn't. I had to work harder and figure out what was going to work for me as an individual, not, as a box label, having bipolar, right? Yeah, I didn't mean to take the spotlight. I'm sorry, Tia.
No,
Got you
no,
on here as
no,
a guest,
no,
and I'm just
no.
like taking it and running with it, right?
No, no, you're fine.
All right on.
So, question: do
Yeah,
you
shoot.
think pasthood trauma can play a big deal in having bipolar?
Most definitely. And as I said with Gabor Mate's book, When the Body Says No, I would highly recommend anybody reading that. What I found between that one and Bessel van der Kolk, When the Body Keeps the Score, they're two very similar books that discusses childhood traumas and traumas in general. And it's well known that environmental situations can be on the rise to increase your chances of being diagnosed with a mental illness.
Mhm.
Especially with your case there, Tia, being bounced from home to home, probably not knowing where your place was in the world, not having that familiarity, routine and stuff. That's hard, and my heart goes out to you. I had a rough upbringing myself. I mean, a lot of us do, but yes, those are big contributors to being, diagnosed with something of that mental illness.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I do have suggestions that can help aid along with your regimen of medications. As I mentioned, with the meditation, the nature walking, being harmonized with nature, um, sitting and reading, maybe not so much spiritual books. I guess it depends on preference for the person at hand. But the key factor for you that I've noticed right off the get go, you said, was you're not ashamed. You don't walk around with guilt. That's a big burden off the shoulders instantaneously.
Mhm.
Because I tell you, Tia, for a good 15 to 18 years, I was running around hiding it from employees, employers, before I became my own boss, people in general. It's just like that was never to be spoken of because it was taboo, right? Um,
Mhm.
and when somebody found out about it, then you had to try to express your story to them. And it was quite difficult because there wasn't the same understanding and appreciation because maybe they just didn't go through it or it wasn't knowledgeable back in those days.
Mhm.
It's still pretty stigmatic like today, right?
No, I'm
Um,
very. I think I'm very open with my diagnosis. And what I'm going through on a day-to-day basis. I try to be very open. So.
well, that's good. And that's probably helping you therapeutically too, right? You know?
Hmm.
Um,
And I'm very open with my children. Like I talk to them about it. Um, I've talked to them about my childhood trauma. I'm probably too open with them. A lot of people, a lot of people don't like that because they're
hmm,
like, you shouldn't tell your kids this and this and that. But no, I want my kids to understand, like, I went through this. This is where I was, and this is
hmm.
where I'm at now. And I've come a long way. I still have a long way to go, but from 2 years ago, I've come a long way from being in a very dark place and trying to take my life.
Yeah.
And when people still look down on me upon it, like like I said, like my ex-husband, he doesn't understand my mental health. Um, I had a conversation with his wife because I've been divorced now maybe 3 years. It'll be 3 years in March
Okay.
of this year. And she kind of tried to compare herself and say, "Oh, I understand what you're going through because I battle with depression." I'm like, You battle with depression. That's not the
Yeah.
same as bipolar
Yeah.
depression. Those are two big different things.
Yeah.
So, and she's like, well, I don't take medication anymore. But that's you. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't take medication. Whatever works best for you works best for
That's
you.
right.
So
Exactly.
right now, medication is working for me, and that's what I'm gonna do until I feel like I don't need to take it anymore. But I don't ever want somebody to try to compare themselves to me when they're not in my shoes.
No.
They don't
Right.
understand
That's
because
right.
we all might have bipolar depression one, but we all handle it differently.
Mm-hmm.
People handle it differently. People have different things that they go through
Yeah.
having that diagnosis. Everybody don't go through the same thing.
No, my
So
God. And to touch base on that too, Tia, you can have even a set of twins. This is what I read before. Excuse me. Raised in the same environment and still come out as adults having different opinions on that environmental situation. Because what now I don't know if this is guaranteed a fact, but we're supposed to be 50% malleable. The other 50% is
mhm.
genetic and whatnot, right? But yeah, so handling the diseases differently is, by far the most obvious thing because we're not the same individuals. We don't look the same. We don't think the same. We don't act the same.
Mhm.
And it's all based on how you're raised and your circumstances then, after, and down the way. Um, Having those
Oh
all.
yeah, because I didn't grow up. Like I said, I grew up in foster care, and I bounced from home to home, and I never really. It was never just really me and my mom. Like some people they have their mom in their household, and it was never just me like physically living just me and my mom. It was me and my mom and boyfriends, or me and my mom and other people.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why I asked you, can childhood trauma play a big part in having the diagnosis? Because I battled with, when I was 6.5 years old and 8.5 years old. And then even when I got into foster care, I was probably maybe 14, I want to say. I was raped at all those three
Oh
ages.
man, I'm sorry to hear that, Tia.
And my mom, she is actually still married to the man who raped me when I was 8.5. So,
What?
a lot of people are like, oh, you should let it go. You're 34, Tia. You should let it go.
No.
And I'm like, it's very hard, because I don't have a relationship with my mom. And my mom, she also suffers from bipolar. She's
Okay.
bipolar. Now, I don't know if she takes medication. I know she's an alcoholic. So, I've even wrote a book about my pasthood trauma. I haven't got it
Nice.
published yet, but I wrote it when I
Yeah.
was 33. And it talks about me growing up in foster care and being raped and me going through a divorce and just a lot of things I went through in my childhood. So yeah, I haven't dealt with that. I'm still holding on to 8.5-year-old Tia, and I'm 34 years
Yeah.
old.
Right.
So it's very, very difficult.
Well, it is, and I'll tell you too. I'll hit a couple of notes on that. Sean Blackwell and I were discussing this on the podcast before, and he was stating a fact that if somebody was penetrated at a very young age, your chances of having a mental illness, a diagnosing, was through the roof. And naturally, like
Hmm.
as you said, that was the 8-year-old girl, and you're still there because you need, how can I put it, some comfort, closure,
Hmm.
and it's difficult for something of that nature. I've never gone through it. I can't relate, but my heart bleeds for you, and that's just horrible because that damages people in so many ways that you can't just look at somebody and say, get over it, it's X amount of years ago. It's like, fuck, man, that's made me who I am today, right?
Yeah,
Or it's
yeah.
altered me in ways that has stagnated my ability to grow as an individual. That's a cruel way for people to look at it and to project to you. I'm sorry that you had to endure that. But there's ways, like, you might not forget about it, but you can definitely try to work with it. Um, I'm
Hmm.
not an expert, so I'm not going to give sound advice on that, mind you. But it's that's a difficult one, and a lot of people have gone through that, and it's a fucking misfortune. I'm sorry to you.
Oh yeah, because I've had somebody tell me, well, I know people who've had been raped and they've dealt with it and they're not holding on to it, so you need to let it go. Like, no,
No,
until
not at
you're
all.
in my shoes and you've experienced it, you cannot tell me to let something go. I could be 68 years old and still hold on to
Oh
it.
God, yeah, right.
Um,
Yeah.
I haven't found a way, and I for a while, like maybe a month or two ago, I was in therapy. Not for my bipolar depression, but it was for family therapy with me and my kids. Because they're teenagers and they don't listen. Teenagers don't listen.
Mm-hmm.
They want to do what they want to do.
That's right.
And it was just a lot because I'm like, I'm trying to find myself and be a single parent and
Excuse me.
raise two children on my own. It's very hard and difficult. There's no book on how to be a parent, and
No,
people
that's right.
don't tell you, when you go through a divorce, this is what you're gonna have to go through, or this is what you have to deal with. Um, so I was in therapy, and my therapist, she never wanted to talk about my past trauma. It was like, and I had a disagreement, argument with her, and I was like, every time we meet, we never talk about what I went through as a child. I feel like I need to deal with that first, then
Mm-hmm.
move on to what's going on in the present life right now. She was like, "No, we need to work
Mm.
on now," and I'm like, "No, I
Did
need to. You no, that didn't
yeah?
make sense."
Did she explain
So I
why?
literally,
Sorry.
no, she never did. She always wanted to talk about like my relationship with my significant other, and it was always, how are things with you and him, and
Okay.
it was never, okay, let's talk about the rape, let's talk about the abuse, let's talk about you being in foster care. Like, how did those things trigger you? Like, how did that make you feel? Let's talk about the suicide and all, and you cutting on your arms and those
Yeah.
things in your past hood life. Um and I felt like she wasn't a good therapist because, like, every time we met, we would go out to eat. And I feel like when you have a therapist, you're not supposed to be going out being buddy buddy with your therapist,
That's
hanging
unheard of.
out.
Yeah. Right.
And I was always able to go out and have alcohol beverages and drinks, and yeah.
Wow,
And
man. Shit. She
a
wasn't drinking, or he
situation.
wasn't drinking with you, were they? Like,
No, no,
I
no,
was gonna
no,
say,
no.
going out to dinner and
uh,
stuff too. I've never heard of that either, but
Yeah, and a
shit,
lot of
right?
my friends, they said that. And so I think I had a situation where one night something happened and she wanted to fight my significant other, and I think at that point, like, it clicked into me, okay, this is not a therapist for me anymore. And I literally, like, had to cut ties, and I was like, for my sanity and sake, I just don't think we need to continue
Mm,
this. Like, I'm not getting anywhere. You're not helping me. And
yeah,
I
it's a
mean,
lost
so
cause.
let's just cut ties.
Yeah.
So, um,
Well, it's
I'm
good that
trying
you
to now.
acknowledge that too, Tia. Right? Sorry.
Yeah,
You know.
it was difficult because I had thought I formed a bond with her, but then after I thought about it, I was like, I've had therapy in the past, and I went into an office and there was no alcohol, and I was not hanging out going
Yeah.
shopping with my therapist. So this is not normal. Like, I don't
Yeah.
I don't think
I've
this is
never heard tell
normal.
of that. Right? It's supposed to be
Mhm.
on a strict professional level,
Yeah.
not going
Yeah.
out and you know having dinner dates and stuff. That's kind of bizarre, but
Yeah, that's what you do with your friends.
well, yeah,
So,
right. And I don't understand why she would want to delve back into the past and discuss and dissect what happened to you so that she could get a better understanding and work with that rather than this is it, it's laid in my lap, so to speak, and we'll just go from the
mhm.
present and make you a better person for the future. That's kind of counterintuitive. But again, I'm not a professional, and everyone has their different tactics and ideologies. But I think if you have a root problem, that's what we should dig into, not just
Yep.
band-aid and say, well, we'll just give you medication and talk some bullshit and have
Mhm.
dinner dates and get on with it. That's you're not gonna you know benefit from that at all. So, but I'll tell you too, Tia, in the 2 year stint that you've been taking medication and therapy, like, you're doing quite well, and that's coming from a guy who's experienced this lifestyle for, like I said, 20 odd years.
Mhm.
2 year period, I was still a mess, confined to a room, like, wasn't a social creature, totally ashamed, embarrassed, never thought that I was going to see light of day, so to speak. It just felt like it was dismal, bleak, and very empty. And a carved image of my former self. It was difficult to come to grips with a diagnosing and not knowing where to go with it, right? Um, as I stated, there wasn't any outlets besides therapy sessions to look forward to every 4 to 6 months. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I'm sure that a lot of individuals suffering from this illness can relate to that. Um, but thankfully, we have platforms like this that we can express these concerns and get it out there a little further. It's still in my mind, in the back. You know, people looking down on it. It needs to be pushed out in the front and just being handled appropriately. Because
Oh
we're not,
yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
we're not, individuals looking to harm people. I know there's a lot of stigma on that too. Like, oh my God, if you have bipolar, especially bipolar one, you're a fucking lunatic and you're gonna hurt somebody.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Oh yeah. They
watch
think
out
you
for that
always want
one.
to kill someone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And
Like we're not human beings. We're human beings. We
yeah,
still have feelings at the end of the day.
exactly. And we have emotions just like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
That was my biggest aggravation was like, oh, you're awfully angry today. Are you taking your meds? Like, motherfucker, man, I'm just having a bad day.
Oh
And
yeah.
I
That's
want
the
to express
first
it, right?
thing. That's the
Yeah.
first thing they go to. Well, you're having a bad mood, so maybe you didn't take your medicine. Like, why does it have
Yeah.
to be I didn't take my medication
Yeah.
because I'm in a shitty mood? No, that doesn't necessarily mean
Yeah.
that.
That's just, being human and handling your life, the way you would as anyone else would, right? But
Mm-hmm.
no, it's definitely a good thing to do, to get on and discuss our realities because this isn't some storybook bullshit that we're just expressing. This is our lives and they should be taken seriously
Oh
and
yeah,
respected,
most definitely.
right? Yeah. So, um, so what kind of questions do we have for you, Tia? Then to further the medication scenarios, like so. You've got 3 different medications now, and they seem to be doing their job. Like you seem to me, I mean, even just
Mm-hmm.
peering in on your life, like you're stabilized with these medicines, and you're doing quite well. But um, you want to continue these medications until you know, basically, if anything turns up and becomes negative, then that's an option too, eh? I guess what I'm trying to really say here is I get tired after talking so long, so I'm probably not being totally, you know what I mean? That's still an issue. Like my body's so riddled with these fucking drugs. I got to be honest that it's difficult to sometimes keep the flow of sentences together, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, therapy and medication for you is doing wonders. Do you plan on doing anything else down the way? Like,
I've thought about doing meditation, and the whole spiritual thing. Um, and I have a lot of books that I should be reading because I love to read. I have
nice.
probably 1,000 journals.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
So,
Journaling's really good too, right? You know?
yeah, I've been trying to journal, just listen to calm music.
Perfect.
I've been trying to learn how to accept being by myself sometimes because that's a big thing to me. Like, I don't like to be alone. Because I think like when I'm alone, it makes me even more depressed.
Makes sense.
So I'm trying to learn how to deal with those things and accept those things and try to do different things. Just things like that because I don't want to take medication for the rest of my life. Like I just don't want to. Some people might need to or have to, but I personally don't want to be one of those people who is taking medication till I die. So
Hmm.
I just don't.
So to point on that and dissect it a little further, is it because you feel there's going to be side effects based on what you hear, or just maybe you feel that you would do better in the long run down the way without medication? Like, what's your logic behind that one? Just out of curiosity.
Um, Probably both, and then probably also because I don't want people to think I need this medication to function. Like this is who is going to make me be, or I can't
Nice.
be a good person unless I have medication.
I like that.
So
Beautifully,
I want to be
beautifully
able
put.
to deal with not having to take medication, and know, hey, I can still function in the real world, and I can still go to an 8 to 5 job, and
That's
just
right.
still be Tia. Like, because a
Yeah.
lot of people, even I've had the conversation with my psychiatrist. She was like, I'm surprised that you're still working, because a lot of people with that diagnosis, they can't keep a job. And I'm like, there's days where I don't want to work. Like, I've gotten out the bed and I'm like,
Yeah.
as soon as I get to work, I'm like, damn, I'm ready to go home. I don't want to be here. I want to quit.
Yeah.
I don't want to work anymore, but I know I need to work in order to survive and make a
Well, that's it
living.
too. What I found was
So,
I don't think it was a diagnosis so much. I've also have something called undiagnosed ADHD, self-diagnosed.
hmm
I know that my son was diagnosed with it, and a lot of these things are genetic and environmentally passed down too. But
yeah, my
I
son has
always
ADHD too.
does he though? Yeah, I
hmm
always felt like I couldn't be in the same setting. I get bored easily, so if I have to go to the same job, the same setting, the same people, I'm like, I'm gonna fucking gnaw off and just like quit,
hmm
you know. So I had multiple jobs, and they tried to chalk it up and say, "Oh, it's because you're bipolar." No, I don't want to sit in the same spot. We weren't meant to be
hmm
housed in, a structure like this. Like it's just the infrastructure that we live in the matrix today, the reality. But where I landscape, I'm always on the go, always outdoors. It's a different setting, every hour, 2 hours, however long the duration takes for the job to be completed. But that works for me, right? So yeah, I firmly believe that you know preferences are going to make a difference, and your logic and ideologies on the medicine, uh, your principles, your morals, all these things collaborate together. But I would suggest for you too, Tia, if you're into reading books, The Power of Now, if you want to start a spiritual journey, I mean, we're all doing a spiritual path, even if we're not aware of it. My ideology, and it's mine alone, doesn't have to resonate with anyone else, I'm cool with that,
hmm
is I am a spiritual being having a human experience on this realm. And it's kind of like a learning school, just honing my skills and then moving on. Um, as far as I'm concerned, we're all infinite beings, limitless power. I mean, the capabilities that we truly have invested in our vessel, this meat puppet suit that we're wearing, is just. It's unfortunate that it's not talked about in the
hmm
mainstream. We're dumbed down and told that we're limited. We don't have the capabilities that we think we do, and perhaps that's where this whole chemistry comes from with the diagnosing. I'm still skeptical on those ideas, thinking maybe there's something more to this than what anybody really understands yet. Maybe it's still too fresh and new. Because I know that in the mid 90s and early 2000s, a lot of the diagnosings of the generations coming up uh, were just blasting through the roof with bipolar stuff, right? I'm not saying that we're special and we have to be put on a pedestal, but I think there's science that just doesn't fully understand because the brain chemistry is too complex to just narrow it down and say, here's a pill, take that and that'll fix you.
hmm
You know, I mean,
Yep.
shit, it's just beyond uh, comprehension at this point, I think, right? So to everyone out there, if you got a disorder, a diagnosing, don't shit on yourself. As far as I'm concerned, you're a blessing, and it's a new way and perspective and approach to living to a different standard, as far as I'm concerned, right? And
hmm
kudos to everyone fighting their battles, you know. So yeah, without further ado here, Tia, we'll try to wrap this up here in a few minutes. But is there anything you want to say as a last couple of statements? And if you have anything, do you have a platform, or your book's not published yet, but is there anybody that can reach you through a website? Um, do you have anything available?
Um, Not yet.
Yeah,
I'm talking to a friend right now on, how to get it published, and where to go from there, because I feel like I've been making a lot of excuses. Um, and so, she was just like, Tia, you need to put it out there. Like, you could really be helping someone that have went
yes,
through the same thing, that's afraid to talk about it. So I think we discussed that. So I'm trying to get that in the works. And then I think eventually, like, I want to start um, like a weekly podcast on just talking
Nice.
about mental health awareness, mental health issues, depression, ADHD, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar, because, like you said, all that stuff exists. And people look down on us. Like they don't understand it. They don't want to talk about it. Or there's people that are ashamed to talk about it because they're going to get looked down.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
It's the fear that
my
holds us
thing,
back.
yeah,
That's right.
my thing to anybody out there, like, don't be ashamed. Embrace having bipolar depression or ADHD or anxiety or PTSD. Like, it doesn't make you less of a person. At the end of the day, we're still human beings. We have feelings, we have emotions. Um, so just try to have a good support system and, just deal with it the best way you feel is possible.
Heck yeah, right? I second that 100%. That's awesome, Tia. All right. So yeah, what I'll do is put down a few links below in the description, and anyone that wants further content, hit the subscribe button, notification button, so that you can get your alerts as often as I push out content. It was a blessing to have you on here, Tia. To hear your
Yeah,
story.
thank you.
Well,
Thank
yeah,
you.
most definitely, and thank you for being a guest. I'm certain that your story is going to shine bright for others too, and bring other ones out from the darkness that are feeling maybe they don't have that edge to get on a podcast and shoot this out to
Hmm.
people. But it's important. Sharing is caring, and the more knowledge we gather from each other, the stronger we feel, and we're a united people. Um, so yeah, thank you for being a guest, Tia, and I'm sure we can probably do this again in the near future if you're okay with it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you, Tia. You have yourself a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Okay, you
All right.
too.
Take
All
care.
right, bye.
Bye.